Hello, I'm Hannah Jackson-McCamely. I'm a funeral celebrant. Thank you for joining me. I assume you're here because you've lost your dad. If not your dad, your grandfather, or the dad that would have been. Perhaps there's another man or woman who has taken that role in your life. I'm sorry that you find yourself here, and I wish that you were able to Zoom them, or send them a card, or even have a socially distanced meetup. No hugs, mind you. I'd also like to welcome any fathers who are bereaved of their children, who may be feeling adrift on a day like today. When someone you have been close to dies, every day is tough, not just holidays like today. And it's just as hard when that bond may have not always been as strong or your relations were fraught, yet you still shared so much, and anxiety can still rise up, sparking your grief afresh as Father's Day approaches. I suppose in a weird sort of way, thanks to COVID-19, I don't feel quite as bombarded as usual in the run-up to Father's Day. Usually, I walk down the high street and I'm accosted by stacks of cards emblazoned with golf clubs and footballs, and giant mugs bearing trite celebrations for the best dad in the world. Usually, on Father's Day, I feel annoyed and a little disgruntled when all the tables at my local pub are filled with well-meaning annual celebrations in praise of a dad. Celebrations that I'm no longer a part of. This year it's different. The pandemic has isolated us, and despite Instagram ads and emails from brands asking if I want to opt out, this year Father's Day has seemed to creep up as days melt away because normal life has been turned upside down. I'm so sorry if you have arrived here because you've been affected directly by the cruel reality of this terrible virus. I spent a lot of time over the last few months wondering what my dad would make of it. He'd probably be amazed at the mania of the first few weeks. The stockpiling would have baffled him. He was a man that always had a garage full of loo roll and a chest freezer filled, just in case. In times of health, he would have rolled up his sleeves and been at the forefront of making PPE. But in later years, it would have been a time of fear, as he would have been so vulnerable to infection. I've had time to listen to his music and reminisce, and I felt glad that he's not had to endure the weeks of quarantine and the worry about treatment and contamination. But with the death toll updated daily as the pandemic engulfs the world, it's understandable if our grief, even after years gone by, is triggered. Even if completely unrelated, there is a national, even international sense of mourning, and with more time on our hands, we are more open to our memories creeping in. That's not always a bad thing, though. Our fond recollections can act as a salve for our sadness, and looking back can bring comfort in times of unrest. Whether feeling the effects of distancing or the social and political changes happening right now, despite our shared bereavement, our grief, just like the person we love, is completely and utterly unique. So it's not for me to stand here and try and guess how you're all feeling or articulate your grief with one-size-fits-all phrases. I'm afraid that grief, unfortunately, doesn't work like that. Grief has its own idiosyncrasies, and it doesn't matter whether that loss occurred 50 years or 5 months ago. The void left by our dad or our child can never be filled. Only our memories can attempt to heal our heartbreak. We can look upon today with anguish and dread, filled with regret for the time past, the words left unsaid, and the visits missed. We can mourn the future that never happened, that you didn't make your graduation or walk you down the aisle, that you never saw them win the league or see his grandchild smile. But this short service asks that we celebrate and honour all the moments you did share and the men or women they were when they took on that role. Terry Pratchett wrote in Reaper Man, "In the Round Top village where they dance the real Morris dance, they believe that no one is finally dead until the ripples they cause in the world die away, until the clock he wound up winds down, until the wine he made has finished its ferment, until the crop he planted is harvested. The span of someone's life, they say, is only the core of their actual existence." This is particularly apt when we think about why we're here and the impact those we love who have died have on our lives to this day. And we would not be here if that were not the case. So as we come together to commend their lives, despite our heartbreak for their passing, we must acknowledge their death, recognise that for as long as we remember them, the ripples of their lives will continue to reverberate amongst us, within us, and through future generations, thanks to the memories we made. I'm going to share some readings that have resonated with me since my father died, and some that have been chosen for today by some of the families I've worked with over the years when commemorating their dad. You might have words that inspire you in grief. You might like to look at them later when we light a candle and take some moments together to think about those we love gone on ahead, in solidarity and in peace. Michelle Obama wrote in her memoir, Becoming, "Losing my dad exacerbated my sense that there was no time to sit around and ponder how my life should go. My father was just 55 when he died. The lesson there was simple. Life is short and not to be wasted." And I agree with Michelle Obama that life is short, fleeting even. But that is not to say that we should all rush off, climbing the career ladder, taking on the world, no looking back. In fact, the knowledge that life is short should perhaps encourage us to appreciate what we have whilst we have it, not taking a tomorrow for granted. The next poem, chosen by Denise Bailey, encapsulates this. A Fleeting Image by Avi Fletcher. So fleeting is this thing called life. We journey towards its end, experiencing pieces of a puzzle we don't truly comprehend. The hues of our emotion paint a picture of our past as we hurtle towards a destiny that is not meant to last. Youth, a canvas all in white, not knowing what awaits, feel caresses of a brush that which we know as fate. Love, so very true in reds that beat within our heart. Shadows black take form as hate, which tears the soul apart. Greens of joy and happiness, lush grass beyond compare. Sadness, shrouded depths of blue, the waters of despair. Yellow screams of agony and pain, which we will all endure. Guilt and shame are shades of grey, a torrential downpour. Earthy brown desires are that for which we lust, the lost of which comes with age, like chrome begins to rust. The image changing constantly as time plods slowly on, taking shape in many forms as the twilight replaces dawn. We look into a mirror for the answers which we seek, but we find no consolation as our eyes grow dim and weak. The final touches on a painting, created with much love, as we realise that the destination is the gallery above. At last year's service at Mortlake, where we all joined together, we were joined by Linda from the Good Grief Trust. The Good Grief Trust exists to help all those suffering with grief across the UK. All of the team have lost someone important to them, so understand loss intrinsically. This is essential to their ability to help the bereaved find the support they need. At the moment, they are working tirelessly to support those that have experienced the death of a loved one due to COVID-19 and continue to offer valuable guidance to anyone else looking for advice. If you would like to speak to someone about your grief, search for thegoodgrieftrust.org. Last year, Linda shared a beautiful poem that I'd like to share with you all now. Silent, Strong Dad by Karen K. Boyer. He never looked for praises. He's never one to boast. He just goes on quietly working for those he loves the most. His dreams are seldom spoken. His wants are very few. And most of the time his worries will go unspoken too. He's there, a firm foundation through all our storms of life, a sturdy hand to hold on to in times of stress and strife. A true friend we can turn to when times are good or bad. One of our greatest blessings, the man that we call Dad. When we lose someone, we are understandably bereft, but it can help to look for the positives to take away from our tragedy. It's hard because there isn't much, and it's easier said than done, I know, but gratitude is a good way to start. It seems to me that all we can do is be grateful for the time we had with them and for the time we have left with each other. The ritual of lighting a candle to pay tribute to a life past has long been part of our culture and can illuminate that appreciation. Keeping a light burning in remembrance signifies that the memory still lives on and burns bright. It's a ritual that promotes reflection and signifies remembrance and thanks. Light is considered pure. It dispels darkness. It nourishes light and illuminates everything. We could say that light casts the shadow of our grief, or we could look upon such light as something that brightens our view of those we have loved, enhancing their importance, making our memories vivid. So in a moment, as the music plays, I'd like to ask that you take a few moments to light a candle and sit with your thoughts of the one you love. You might also like to get a picture of them, play a song that they loved, or just enjoy some peace. When someone loses a child, their world changes forever. Father's Day is just one of those days where that loss can feel more profound. Whether it's the first or the 50th holiday after a child has died, their father can still feel acuity in their absence. For all that we love deeply, irrespective of the time shared, becomes a part of us. Jason Green wrote in his beautiful memoir, Once More We Saw Stars, about the tragic death of his daughter Greta. Children who lose parents are orphans. Bereaved spouses are widows. But what do we call parents who lose children? It seems telling to me that there is no word in our language for such a situation. It is unspeakable, and by extension, we are not supposed to exist. We tell ourselves that this is not the natural order of things, but these tragedies do happen, and no one deserves to feel alone. The fathers who mourn their children are still parents, much like those bereaved of their father are still daughters and sons. And although their presence on earth was cut short too quickly, the impact that that child made has a heightened importance. In an emotional, contemplative piece written in response to a fan's letter, the songwriter Nick Cave shared his thoughts on the death of his son Arthur. He wrote, "It seems to me that if we love, we grieve. That's the deal. That's the pact. Grief and love are forever entwined. Grief is a terrible reminder of the depths of our love, and like love, grief is non-negotiable. There is a vastness to grief that overwhelms our minuscule selves. We are tiny, trembling clusters of atoms, subsumed within grief's awesome presence. It occupies the core of our being and extends through our fingers to the limits of the universe. Within that whirling Gaia, all manner of madness exist. Ghosts and spirits and dream visitations, and everything else that we, in our anguish, will into existence. These are precious gifts that are as valid and as real as we need them to be. They are the spirit guides that lead us out of the darkness. I feel the presence of my son all around, but he may not be there. I hear him talk to me, parent me, guide me, though he may not be there. He visits his mother in her sleep regularly, speaks to her, comforts her, but he may not be there. Dread grief trails bright phantoms in its wake. These spirits are ideas, essentially. They are our stunned imaginations, reawakening after the calamity. Like ideas, these spirits speak of possibility. So follow your ideas, because on the other side of the idea is change and growth and redemption. Create your spirits, call to them, will them alive, Speak to them. It is their impossible and ghostly hand that draws back to the world from which we were jettisoned. Better now, but unimaginably changed. One imagines that the loss of a child can be a lonely experience, with friends and family not knowing what to say. West London Sands is very active in the area and provides a forum for those that have gone through stillbirth and baby loss. Mark Shepherd works closely with West London Sands and set up Bonded in January 2019 to connect grieving fathers socially. Both Bonded and West London Sands have supported many families who have lost children, and they're very active on social media and can be contacted via Twitter and Facebook, and all the details are on their websites. Simply Google West London Sands or Bonded. I spoke to a friend whose son had died, and we reminisced about the stories he loved at bedtime. One was Where the Wild Things Are, the story of Max's adventures with monsters, all the noises and growls imitated by his little boy. Months later, in the mania of his bereavement, he came across the poem The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell, which seems somewhat fortuitous with his child in mind. I'd like to share it with you now. The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night, at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars, waiting for their light, for a time. I rest in the grace of the world, and I am free. Today is a lot, but every day is a lot when you're mourning. Sometimes that grief can feel heavy, or that love with nowhere to go. That weight may ebb and flow, and it may even at times be a joy to carry, a testament to the eternal bond we have with our fathers. As we come to the close of this tribute to our dads, I want to give thanks to you all for coming here and making time to honour Father's Day. Each of us here have every right to celebrate the fathers in our lives today and always, even if they're not with us in person, or we can't take that role in the traditional sense. We're still their daughters and their son, and we're still their father. And though we lament their loss always, it made us who we are today. To close, I'd like to share When Great Trees Fall by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality bound to them takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. But when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Space is filled with a kind of soothing, electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. Never forget that they existed. Life can be lost, but love cannot. Think of all the good times and the happiness shared, and for us to embrace all the glimpses of them that we catch as we go about our day. The faint smell of their aftershave or pipe smoke in the air, in a polo neck or the boots that you wear. At the finish line on sports day or a jazz record played, let us follow them proudly in the footsteps that they made. And as a final thought from Isabel Allende, people die only when we forget them, said my father. If you can remember me, I'll be with you always. Thank you and take care.